Hello everybody, welcome to Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old, and we're doing another one of these bracket things. Even though it is no longer March, it's not really March Madness anymore. We're well into April, so that doesn't really apply, but I did say that I still had this Daft Punk bracket and a Boards of Canada one as well that I plan on doing later. I'm not going to do any more after that, probably, because that's plenty, and I think people are done with making these kinds of videos. But I I made a promise that I was going to do these. I'm going to follow up on those promises. So yeah, this is the Daft Punk Madness bracket. So I will have to first get out of the way the fact that I edited this bracket. As you can tell, obviously, from the epic Photoshop skills in the top left corner especially. Because the thing about the original bracket that I found is that it did not have 64 songs, and I knew that Daft Punk have enough tracks missing that weren't included. Like, there was nothing on this bracket from Tron Legacy, so I put a whole slew of tracks from Tron Legacy in this bracket. And I also put the 2 tracks they did with The Weeknd in the bracket as well. The original brackets basically covered everything in their mainline albums and a couple of random obscure singles. Stuff from Daft Club and random singles and all those kinds of things. But besides fleshing it out, I haven't changed the bracket otherwise. Okay, well, with the exception of one matchup, Face to Face versus Something About Us in the original, and I didn't want that to be one of the out-of-the-gate ones, so I just couldn't help myself and I changed that one up. In retrospect, maybe not the most difficult decision that could have come from the original bracket, but the main thing that I took issue from this bracket was the fact that certain songs could skip ahead of the bracket more easily, and I didn't like that. So, here we go. So, these 64 tracks from various places in Daft Punk's discography, and let's fill it out. So, okay, we're starting with the top left bracket, Random Access Memories. So, the first matchup we got here is Crescent Dolls versus Alive. And I didn't really have a lot of, emotional weight in this pick here. Neither are particular huge favorites, but I ended up going with Alive on this one. And then Within versus Around the World, that was pretty obvious, went with Around the World. Love Around the World. And then Starboy versus Recognizer. This is one of my own matchups, unfortunately. I do like Recognizer, but I ended up going with Starboy on this one. Recognizer, it's definitely one of my favorites from Tron Legacy. It kind of helps define those main themes in the beginning, but Starboy is just a really good pop song, and I'll leave it at that. I Feel It Coming versus Musique. I ended up going with Musique on this one. I mean, I Feel It Coming. I really do like I Feel It Coming. Obviously made my best hits of 2017 list, but Musique is basically what WDPK 83.7 FM from Homework should have been. Because it has that same music sample in it, and it's obviously just a much more well fleshed out song. Even though it's clearly a Homework type track, very repetitive, obviously not a lot going on, but I don't know, it's good for what it is. If some of those elements were introduced into the WDPK interlude, I think that probably would have made that track more impactful, I guess. I mean, obviously I did not cover Musique in any of my actual reviews, so may as well get my thoughts out on the track right there. Alright, so anyway, moving on from there, Human After All versus Too Long. I went with Too Long, But I do have to give special shout out to Human After All, which I did not want to get kicked out this quickly. I mean, I know I rescued Something About Us, but Human After All definitely deserved better than that. Oh well. Rollin' Scratchin' versus Adagio for Tron. The thing about Rollin' Scratchin' is that, I mean, on one hand, that track is a lot better than when I initially made my review of Homework eons ago. But, I still went Adagio for Tron, because I do think it is one of the more emotionally impactful moments on that soundtrack. Just straight orchestral thing. Rollin' Scratchin' it's grown on me, but I still would not consider it among my huge favorite Daft Punk tracks, personally. Yeah, Homework is not gonna be treated well by this bracket. Big surprise there. Now, Technologic versus Burnin'. I went with Burnin'. Technologic, it's still never been one of my huge favorites. And High Fidelity versus The Game of Love. That was a pretty obviously High Fidelity. I realize I just said that Homework got not treated as well, but that's maybe not entirely true. So finishing up this bracket, Alive versus Around the World, obviously Around the World. Starboy versus Musique. That, I contemplated on that one for a while, but I ended up going Musique. I mean, I could really go either way with this one, but figured this was probably a safer pick. Not that it really matters, but I think I hold those two tracks in about equal regard, I guess. Alright, then there's Too Long versus Adagio for Tron. That's obviously Too Long. I mean, that's a pretty obvious one there. And then Burnin' versus High Fidelity, obviously High Fidelity. Yeah, and then going from there, Around the World versus Musique, pretty obviously Around the World there. Crossing over the best photoshopped section of this entire bracket. Just look at those crooked lines there. I'm such an epic Photoshop user. And then Too Long versus High Fidelity, that was a really tough one. But, I ended up going Too Long, I guess biased towards Discovery, because it is my favorite Daft Punk album, obviously. And I also picked Too Long to win that whole section. Homework did kind of sort of get snubbed, but, you know, it had a good run there. I mean, I do love High Fidelity and Around the World. Maybe they could have made it further in other brackets. But against Too Long, which is just such a great closer to Discovery, I don't really have much else to say there. So, okay. Alright, so now we're doing the bottom left bracket. So let's get into that. Rock and Roll versus Steam Machine. I went Steam Machine on that one, but it's really more me voting against Rock and Roll, because that is almost certainly my least favorite Daft Punk track ever. That, Steam Machine is not a great track, but, I mean, this is like a Hillary Clinton vote right there. Whatever. Touch versus Give Life Back to Music. That was a really tough one, too. Because those are both fantastic tracks from Random Access Memories, but for different reasons. I ended up going with Touch because it's more interesting. It's just more satisfying a listen, I guess. Give Life Back to Music is a lot catchier, but I don't know. I guess I just really was feeling that intro to Touch and just everything in it. It's a very nice track. Okay, then Daft and Direct versus Aerodynamite from Daft Club. I ended up going with Aerodynamite. That's by a pretty wide margin, I would say. I mean, I don't know if I like it more than regular Aerodynamic, but it is a nice track there. And The Prime Time of Your Life versus Up in the Air, Up in the Air. And I went with The Prime Time of Your Life. The superheroes, I mean, I'll give it credit for me never having gotten sick of that sample, but Prime Time of Your Life, just a catchier track, more fun track, I guess. I don't know. It was a bit of a close one, but neither are top tier Daft Punk tracks for me. And then One More Time versus Teachers. One More Time. I think that's pretty obvious. The Teachers is just a collection of shoutouts. But, I mean, it's cool, but whatever. Oh, and then this is interesting. Overture versus Digital Love. Overture from Daft Club again. Overture is definitely an interesting track. There's a lot to like there. But Digital Love, I think, is just such a more iconic track. That was really not much contest there, even if I did happen to listen to Daft Club on a regular basis, which I don't. I think I've listened to it once. But whatever. Motherboard versus Robot Rock. I went with Motherboard. As much as I love Robot Rock, that track becomes far less impressive when you hear the track Release the Beast by Breakwater, which Robot Rock basically just rips off the entire intro from and doesn't do anything with it. Motherboard just has a lot more instrumentally going on. I mean, Robot Rock is super catchy, but whatever. Just Motherboard is obviously a track I have a lot more respect for. And then Lose Yourself to Dance versus Derezzed. And I ended up going with Derezzed, actually. It's one of my favorite tracks from Tron Legacy, even though Lose Yourself to Dance is very... It is also one of my favorites from Random Access Memories, but I figured Tron Legacy ought to get a fair chance here. Okay, so finishing up this bracket, Touch wins over Steam Machine by a fairly wide margin. The Prime Time of Your Life wins over Aerodynamite, mainly because I've listened to the Prime Time of Your Life so much more. Aerodynamite I've listened to like 2 or 3 times, and I like it, but Prime Time of Your Life is a lot more important to me personally, I think. And One More Time versus Digital Love. Ooh. 2 very similar tracks, but I ended up edging it One More Time a little over Digital Love. I don't know what to say. Both super iconic tracks from Discovery that I like for very similar reasons, but I like One More Time a little bit more, I think. And then Motherboard versus Derezzed, that Motherboard pretty clearly came out on top there. And then finishing up here, Touch versus Prime Time of Your Life. I could go either way with that one, but I picked Touch. And then One More Time versus Motherboard, I went with One More Time. One More Time is a big part of my life, I would say. Big enough that it wins this bracket as well. Cool. So now it's time for the bottom right bracket, which has some more fantastic photoshopping skills there. So yeah, the Human After All bracket. So our first matchup here is Television Rules the Nation versus Emotion. And I think I'll go with Television Rules the Nation. Emotion, that's an alright track, but does not deserve to be as long as it is. And Television Rules the Nation, that's a pretty iconic track, I would say. One of my favorites from Human After All, definitely. Then Contact versus Night Vision. That pretty obviously went to Contact, though I do have to give special mention to Night Vision, being the one interlude track on any of the albums that actually made it onto this bracket. And I'm glad it got mentioned, because I do love Night Vision. It could have maybe won against some lower tier track from Homework, but against Contact, that's really no contest there. Then Fresh versus Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. Same deal with the previous one. I mean, obviously, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger wins, but Fresh also is one of my favorite tracks from Homework, and it probably would have fared a lot better elsewhere on this bracket, obviously. But yeah, so then Phoenix versus Instant Crush. I don't know. Instant Crush is probably my least favorite track from Random Access Memories, as controversial as that's been. And Phoenix, I mean, that's one of the better ones from Homework, but not a massive favorite. I much prefer tracks like Fresh and High Fidelity and all those. But I ended up going with Phoenix. It was a pretty close one, but I didn't really care that much. I knew whatever was going to be picked here was not going to be moving on afterwards. Spoilers. Then Revolution 909 versus Tron Legacy End titles. That was a tough one, and I have no one to blame but myself for that placement. Tron Legacy End titles are fucking great. One of the best tracks from the soundtrack, but Revolution 909's a classic. Gotta give it to Revolution 909. And then The Game Has Changed versus The New Wave. I went with The Game Has Changed. New Wave, it's basically Acid House version of Alive, which, you know, it's cool, I guess, but not particularly enthusiastic about that track, personally. Disc Wars versus Voyager, went with Voyager, though the Disc Wars is one of the best tracks from Tron Legacy. And then Oh Yeah versus Solar Sailor, pretty clearly went to Solar Sailor. So, yeah, moving on from there. So, Television Rules the Nation versus Contact, pretty clearly went to Contact. Already mentioned the next one. Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger over Phoenix. Revolution 909 wins over Game Has Changed. And then Voyager versus Solar Sailor. I actually ended up picking Solar Sailor on this one. I mean, Voyager, I love Voyager. I mean, I figured if there's gonna be any track from Tron Legacy to make any significant progress in this bracket, it's going to be Solar Sailor. That's maybe my favorite track from the entire soundtrack right there. Just love Solar Sailor. And from there, Contact versus Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. I could have gone either way with that one, but I picked Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. Just, I guess, go with what you know. Contact is more epic, but Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger is just such an iconic track. And obviously I've listened to it so much more. And I'm still not sick of it. And then Revolution 909 versus Solar Sailor. This is easily the pick in this entire video that I spent the most amount of time trying to figure out which one I was feeling more. Because Revolution 909, still a classic track, still one of the best tracks from Homework, but, ooh, it was so close, but I actually ended up edging out Solar Sailor. Just such a beautiful and relaxing track there. Daft Punk do not really have that much that sounds like it. But Solar Sailor could not beat Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. Ended up going with the obvious one there. So, moving on from there. So the final bracket here, the top right, the Discovery bracket. Let's do that. So High Life versus Indo Silver Club, pretty clearly High Life. Indo Silver Club still not huge on that one. Make Love versus Doing It Right. I went with Make Love. Doing It Right is not one of my favorites from Random Access Memories, personally. I mean, it is a good track, obviously, since everything on Random Access Memories is good, but I think Human After All, the album, has been snubbed a lot more frequently than Homework, now that I mention it. My favorite track from the album got eliminated in the first round. But it is what it is. Make Love. That is one of my favorites from Human After All, obviously. I don't think that album would be nearly as good if Make Love were not there. And ooh, this was a bad one. Daft Punk versus Get Lucky. I went with Get Lucky, but it is kind of like two of their most iconic tracks. The one that basically introduced the world to Daft Punk as we know them, or the track that introduced the mainstream public to Daft Punk. It was tough, but Get Lucky, I think it's just... It's a catchier song. It's a track that brings basically our entire family together. All of us love Get Lucky. Then Something About Us versus Fragments of Time. Come to think of it, Fragments of Time probably deserved a better placement too. I mean, it originally went versus Beyond, which in that case it definitely would have won, but since I changed it, Something About Us is definitely the winner there. But whatever. Both are definitely great tracks, but Something About Us goes back a lot longer with me, obviously. And obviously Face to Face versus Beyond, Face to Face all the way. And then Aerodynamic versus Short Circuit. Aerodynamic, I think. That's also two tracks from Discovery that I'm not gonna say are just super top tier tracks from Discovery, but Aerodynamic obviously just has a lot more going on. That's another one that I could go either way. And ooh, this was another one. I didn't want to cheat too hard with this bracket, but if I were to move around another placement, it would be this one, because Veritas Quo versus Giorgio by Marauder. Veritas Quo is another track that deserves so much better. It's one of my favorite tracks from Discovery, and one of the reasons why I hold Discovery in such high regard. But Giorgio by Marauder is also my favorite track from Random Access Memories, and as some may remember, was the number one on my top 10 list of Daft Punk by a hair. But yeah, Giorgio is our winner there. But yeah, love Veritas Quo as well. And then End of Line versus The Brainwasher. I went with End of Line. Another one of my favorites from Tron Legacy. Had to give it to that one. And I do really like The Brainwasher, but I gotta be in the right mood for that one, and I just wasn't feeling that one as much today. Yeah, holy crap, I did not realize how badly Human After All suffered through this bracket. Very little of it is making it ahead. Now, Make Love, I did take over High Life, but, yeah, and then Something About Us over Get Lucky. I was just really feeling Something About Us, recently. Maybe you could have made my actual top 10 list if I were to make that nowadays, but yeah, that was a close one as well. Something About Us doesn't really bring the entire family together in the same way Get Lucky does, but I think that one's just closer to me personally, being the Discovery fanboy that I am. Face to Face versus Aerodynamic. Face to Face. Just love Face to Face. And then Giorgio versus End of Line. Giorgio. Alright, and then Make Love versus Something About Us. Something About Us. That's another really close one, because I do also like Make Love and Something About Us for very similar reasons, but yeah, unfortunately for Human After All, its best faring track on this bracket by far, it had to go up against Something About Us, and Something About Us I definitely, there's something about Us. I'm sorry. And then Face to Face versus Giorgio by Marauder. My number 1 and number 2 pick from the top 10 list. And I actually went with Face to Face. Because as I said, Giorgio on the top 10 list only made it to number 1 by a hair. It was very close for me, and I've obviously given Giorgio props on that top 10 list, so I figure it's only fair to Face that it gets props here, because Face to Face is my favorite track from Discovery, probably. And I also picked Face to Face over Something About Us because I'm predictable like that. I guess the matchup ended up happening anyway, but I feel like it's much more fitting to happen that end of the bracket instead of right from the get-go. So, yeah, now we got our semi-finals. Too Long, One More Time, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, and Face to Face. All tracks from Discovery. Can you guess which album from Daft Punk might be this guy's favorite? I wonder. These are two almost impossibly difficult decisions here. The slightly easier pick for me was Face to Face over Too Long. It was... I mean, obviously both of these picks are insanely difficult, because Too Long is such a cathartic closer, but Face to Face I've just listened to so much more. I just loved all those chopped up disco elements. I just love Face to Face, everything about it. And One More Time versus Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. Of course, you were putting the two tracks which I placed as a tie in my Daft Punk top 10 list because of fucking course. But I didn't put too much thought into this, but today I was just feeling Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger a little more. And Face to Face just wins everything. I don't really have much else to say there. Face to Face, obviously. As I said, it's almost certainly my favorite track from Discovery. It's by far my most listened to Daft Punk song ever. And yeah, I love Face to Face. And it wins this bracket, so I guess I'll leave it at that. I guess you will see the Boards of Canada one probably before the end of the month, and then I'm not going to do any more brackets after that. They do make for cool videos, but I don't know, if it's a little gimmicky, maybe. I don't know. But, yeah, so I'll leave it at that. Of course, it's just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing in there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.